Here's Mandrew, it's that kind of position. Oh, what a goal! What a goal from Danny Mandrew! The shot comes in! Oh, what a screamer!
This is the real heart of soccer, quite frankly.
Oh my God, what a finish. Well, Jordan Flores met that on the meat.
Hello there, you're very welcome to episode 33 of the LOI Arena podcast. It's myself, Con Murphy, and Conan Byrne with you yet again. And we've so much to talk about. We have a great guest this week, Jim Beglin, former Shamrock Rovers player, obviously a former Liverpool player, and a former Irish international now, co-commentator and a very busy co-commentator. So we'll be chatting with Jim later on. Conan, we've a lot of stuff to talk about here as well. Apart from the domestic stuff, obviously we're speaking now just after Ireland have won 3-0 away in Luxembourg to finish off the World Cup qualifying campaign. And what a lovely way to finish it.
Yeah, I'm on a bit of a high, Con. I don't want to get carried away. But yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Like it's just in terms of the improvement, I suppose, and the enjoyment of being able to watch the Republic of Ireland games. Obviously, like for that whole game, I was sitting on the edge of my seat, you know, and in previous years, previous decades, it's been a case of I'll go out and make myself a cup of tea halfway through a game, or like halfway through a half, knowing that I'll come back in and nothing has happened. So just in terms of possession, passing, bravery on the ball, impact substitutions like this evening with Jason Knight and the impact he made, and seeing, like, obviously it's the League of Ireland podcast, but seeing the players that played in this league step up and be trusted by the international manager to play in these big games, it's just such a lovely thing to see. And yeah, I'm absolutely delighted for Ogbene getting his goal as well, because he was absolutely tremendous, deserved his man of the match award. But the goal
was
itself,
you tweeted the best Irish goal ever.
I said the best Irish goal, and then I put a full stop beside it, and then I said ever. Yeah, I do. I think it is. Like, and a lot of people come back to me saying, "Oh yeah, well, what about Keane?" When John Kenny was saying, "Well, what about Keane v France and Wes Hoolahan's goal and all that, and Robbie Brady's goal against Italy?" You know, yeah, they're all great goals. Like, and obviously at great tournaments. But in terms of the actual goal itself, I don't know if you remember Guti for Real Madrid when he was played through by Zidane, I think it was, and he did a little back heel towards Benzema to knock it in. It was exactly like Jason Knight did that carbon copy of it today. Was
amazing, wasn't it? Yeah.
But like even Jeff Hendrick and the stick that he's been getting over the last number of years, like he didn't have a great first half by all accounts. He's brilliant against Portugal. Didn't have a great first half today, but his ball through to Jason Knight. Jason Knight pointed, if people want to watch it back, he pointed to where he wanted it played. Yeah. And then the vision just the back heel to Ogbene. And then, as Richie Sadlier said in the post-match analysis after the game, if he had missed, James McLean would have, I think, torn asunder. Yeah, he was right beside him. But it was a wonderful goal. And the third goal as well, James McLean with a wonderful ball into the box, and Knight just squaring across to Callum Robinson. It's fitting the fact that he finishes off the goal scoring during this qualifying campaign, because he's put up with a lot of stick, I suppose, with his COVID talk. But at the same time, he's come up with the goods, and a marvelous victory for us against Luxembourg. And look, I know, sorry, Con, I know you're going to come in here, but I know a lot of people are saying that, like Liam Brady, for instance, after the match, and I know Liam Brady the other day, he caused a lot of issues with a lot of Irish football and fans with his talk of Stephen Kenny and the Irish team. But today he was completely wrong in what he said as well after the game. He said this Luxembourg team are a poor outfit, but they're not. 9 of their 11 starters play in the top leagues in Europe, like the Dutch league. There's the Bundesliga. There's the Greek league. There was a player playing from the MLS.
One of the guys was playing in Portugal last season as well, you know, top division.
Yeah, so but we have players that have, like, if you change it to us, we have 5 players that play in top leagues. You know, like, and 6. Sorry, I forgot Josh Cullen, but only 3 of them play like the other, like Ida, Doherty, and Hendrick don't get their games.
I think Liam was wrong on that one, because as well, when you think about it, Portugal and Serbia, who are obviously the top two teams in the group, both found it tough to break Luxembourg down in Luxembourg. That they're not the pushover 5-0, 6-0 team you're going to beat that they would have been in Liam's era, maybe when he was playing, and I don't think I agree with you. I thought he was quite dismissive of Luxembourg, and it kind of suited his view on
narrative
things. His narrative, that's the word I was looking for. But I mean, as from a League of Ireland point of view, again, just so many of the players in the squad now are coming from a League of Ireland background. And even I sent a tweet to Tony O'Donoghue afterwards, because he did a very nice piece with Gavin Bazunu before the game. And in that piece, Gavin Bazunu talked about, being a Shamrock Rovers fan and having played for Rovers and stuff. And I just thought to myself, I took myself back to when I was a child. And when I used to go into school and tell people I followed Shamrock Rovers, and everybody else in the class was either a Liverpool, Man United, Nottingham Forest in those days, and I was always a bit embarrassing almost to be a Shamrock Rovers fan. Now a kid can go into his class and his hero, Gavin Bazunu, is a Shamrock Rovers fan. So he doesn't have to be embarrassed, so even little things like that can make a difference. And, Chidozie coming from Cork City and Limerick, and James McLean, obviously Derry City, Seamus, Sligo Rovers. There's a link there to so many different clubs in the league. And it's great to see,
But that's I put up a tweet on Friday with all the different clubs. I think I put up 8 or 9 players, and they were all associated with different clubs in the league. It wasn't associated with, let's say, Shamrock Rovers or Dundalk. They've been associated with everything, right around the country. Yeah, it's been
you have a manager who managed Longford and Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers and Bohemians.
Exactly. It's incredible. And look, I think like he's going to get a new contract. I don't think that should have even been a debate. I thought they wasted so much time talking about that over the last 2 matches. Yeah, and absolutely, I completely agree with you, because it was always going to be a case that they were going to, it should have been the case that he was going to be offered a new deal, considering the progress that has been made. We've got to remember that at the start of his tenure, we were in the serious part of a pandemic, and the COVID was rife in the camp as well. He didn't have a full squad to choose from for a large portions of his early time in charge, and it's only in the last couple of games that he has had that. And like as I said, as it stands, the last 4 games, they've won 3, drawn 1 against Portugal at the Aviva, where they had a legitimate goal ruled out at the end. 10 goals scored, none conceded. Like
Bazunu's save tonight.
Outrageous, Con. That is absolutely outrageous how he got to that, because it's as if he went and then midair he went again. It's absolutely incredible save. And I can understand why people are saying it's probably it's one of the best saves they've ever seen. Behind the angle from you're looking at it from the halfway line to him, it's astonishing. And he's so young. Like Man City are going to have they really are going to have a decision on their hands whether or not to let him go, because I'm sure he's not going to want to play at League One next year. There's not a chance he's playing League One football next year. There's not a chance he's playing Championship football next year. He's going to be a Premier Division goalkeeper next year. There's no doubt about it. Or he goes to a top European league to develop further. But Man City will have to decide whether.
Well, I wonder, could Man City still? I mean, they have a couple of players, for example, on loan with Sporting in Portugal, who are Champions League team, so they might look at loaning him out on a 2-year loan, as they have done with a couple of 20-year-olds this season now, to a good top club where Gavin would get amazing experience and probably Champions League football and what have you, something like that.
Yeah, well, look, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know what the terms of the loan agreement is at the moment, whether they recall him and send him out to one of those European clubs to get even greater experience, or perhaps they might feel that at Portsmouth he's doing a very, very good job there, and they're getting money for their dollar there, and you don't know. But I know, like, we can, Gavin, he's going to want to play at the top level.
Yeah, that ambition, I thought, came across in the interview with Tony.
Definitely.
This is only the beginning,
Definitely.
Yeah. And he's a very level-headed lad,
He is. He knows he's still learning, and but he's going to be an incredible goalkeeper. Like, and then you feel sorry for Queefing, then, don't you? When you have two top goalkeepers at such a young age. Like, Queefing could have had 100 caps himself by the time he retires, and then Gavin is probably going to take them all of them.
And poor old Travers as well. In other times he would have been knocking on the door to be the number one himself. He's a very good goalkeeper too. So and it's just that he got the nod. Remember, he got the nod in Serbia and made a couple of mistakes, and then Gavin was brought in, and Gavin hasn't looked back since. And but look, the future's bright. I already can't wait for the next series of games and next qualifying campaign to take place. And I'm not expecting drastic things. I think a lot of people might think, we're going to go off and we're going to qualify easily for the next European campaign. It's not going to be like that, and we have to be realistic behind our targets as well in terms of our seeding. It's still going to be down,
It's still going to be very difficult, but we're going to be more competitive. We're going to play good attacking football, and we will win more than we lose.
Yeah, for sure. And somebody else tweeted tonight that this is the time that the FAI should be promoting season tickets now, because even the crowd in Luxembourg tonight were so noisy and so into it and behind the team, and you can see how much they missed that in the early part of the campaign when the matches were being played behind closed doors and stuff. So it's great to see. Do you know what else is great to see? Jonathan Hill tweeting at games.
Do you know what I mean? Like
engaging,
engaging with Twitter. Like, even this last weekend, he's been everywhere.
Yeah,
and he's been everywhere. In fairness to him, he refereed a game yesterday, for a girls' game, as far as I'm aware. Then he was at the Women's League and National League at Tulka Park last night. Then over to Luxembourg today, and very engaging on Twitter as well. That's great to see, because it's always been these behind closed doors, private, not allowed to know not allowed to see what goes on behind closed doors at the FEI. It's very transparent at the moment, and hopefully it continues.
You mentioned the Women's National League, and we'll talk about that later on the SSE Electricity League, the Premier Division this weekend. Well, going back to Thursday, really. Dundalk made themselves safe with the Dan Cleary goal late on against Drogheda. An interesting week at Dundalk, and we'll talk about that in a second. Friday, Bows beat Shamrock Rovers 3-1. Another win for Bows in the Dublin Derby. Few sparks on the sidelines there, just sparks by way of red cards, no fireworks or anything like that. Derry 2-0 winners against Sligo. That was a good win for Derry as well, to keep them in with a shout of Europe. And St. Pat's 2-2 against Finn Harps, cracking game at Inchicore. And then Longford won, Waterford won on Saturday. So obviously Rovers are getting the trophy next week in the match against Drogheda. But that last series of matches now, Waterford against Pats, Harps against Longford, will decide who goes into the playoffs. But Harps have the whip hand now with the better goal difference. Although I still think that goal difference thing is annoying me, because the 7-0 that Waterford lost when they played the under-19 team, again due to COVID, could come back to haunt them. And actually, if it were down to head-to-head, they've beaten Finn Harps twice this season. So that's put Waterford behind the cue ball, or the black ball, as they say. And the other thing to be decided next weekend is the fourth place and a possible place in Europe. Derry away to Dundalk and Bows away to Sligo. So that last series of matches on Friday is going to be interesting. But will we start? Where do you want to start? Will we start on Thursday? First match of the week, Dundalk winning. And I think everybody in Dundalk, even more than that result, just seems to be so pleased that the local consortium are taking over from Peak Six, and hopefully a new era is about to start at Dundalk, albeit they're not going to be playing European football this season or next season.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic news for the club and for its supporters. And so much change has happened in the last 48 hours as well, with people coming back in. Colin Murphy being one
Club secretary.
that need the club secretary, yes, and Jim Magilton exiting. I don't think there's any love lost between some former employees of the club and Jim. I think he rubbed people up the wrong way. Shane Taff, who was the videographer of the club, did a match analysis for some of the games as well. He was told that he wasn't good enough. Needed to be more professional. He put up a tweet earlier today explaining that, and so he's pretty thrilled to see Jim leave Oriel Park as well. So look, it's easy to kind of put the foot into somebody when they're probably down. So I'm not going to do that. But Dundalk are in good hands now. They're going to be looking up. Be interesting to see who takes over the manager's job at the club, whether they give it to Vinny going forward.
Do you think that's up for grabs?
I think so. I think so. I think everything has to be up for grabs, Con. I think if you had a nail down Europe, which would have been an unbelievable feat.
Yeah, it was almost an impossible task, in fairness to him.
I think if he had achieved it, I think he would have had to have gotten it.
Yeah.
A bit like, I think he would have gotten it. But I think everything has to be up for grabs, Con. I think it's a case where like Dundalk is such a big club that you just can't, I don't know. You have to go through the process, and like if you have to look at all parts of the club and see where it went wrong. And yeah, I'm sure they're going to look at it, as I said, at every part of it, and the manager's job will probably be there too. Even though I think Vinny has done a very, very good job since he's gone back in, considering where they were. He did steady the ship. So we'll just have to wait and see. Like, there's going to be a lot of people interested in that job, so as well. So it's going to be interesting. I'm
just thinking for the new consortium who are coming in, and Andy Connolly's name has been mentioned, and Stat Sport and so on. Yeah. It's a tricky one because obviously we know of a number of players who are already leaving the club to go to Derry mainly. And you kind of feel that maybe one or two of the international players might head off at the end of this season as well. So the squad is going to be quite shorn of players. Yeah. They don't have European money coming in next year. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of a budget they have to try and put a squad together that will actually, if not challenge for the league, at least challenge for Europe. Absolutely. And like Daniel Cleary is the most wanted man in Ireland at this moment in time as well. I think every single club in the country is looking at him. So, and is he going to want to not play in Europe? Absolutely not. Is he out of contract? Yes. Is the majority of their players? Yes. So that's not the fault of the players. It's just how the club was ran over the last number of years. They lost so many players in the last number of years that have made them less competitive, and that shows in the league position. So they've had the fall from grace has been absolutely incredible. Like, when we've seen Cork as well, they dropped down. And luckily for Dundalk, they haven't done that. So they can rebuild in the Premier Division with new owners that have a really good invested interest in the club. And yeah, I'd hate to see a complete revamp in terms of the squad. I'd love to see a lot of the players re-sign, but a lot of them are going to want away because there's no Europe there. I think Andy Boyle is the only one that's signed up for next year, which is incredible. Really. I mean, good to have him, but he's going to need some help alongside him. So it's going to be an interesting close season then for Dundalk. The Dublin Derby, Bows 3-1 winners. League race OG. The goal from Promise O'Masher was fantastic. Per defending, Con, I think. Yeah, I agree. But I thought the way he took it was fantastic. Take nothing away from the finish. Yeah, take nothing away from the finish. And even his first touch, to get your foot up that high to control the ball. Yeah. And the sparks on the sideline was Stephen Bradley and Keith Long getting sent off for having a tete-a-tete
We didn't see it though, Con. We didn't see it.
Jesus, I was raging. The two commentators are talking about the two managers going head to head on the sideline, and the camera just stayed in a fixed position on the center circle, and they just tilt the camera down. What are you doing? Anyway, apart
They're
from
the two managers you'd love to see head to head as well.
God, it would have been really useful footage even for the FAI if they're bringing disciplinary issues to the table. So I was disappointed in that. But other than that, I tweeted actually that it was disappointing to see empty seats in the stand for a sold out game. And actually, it was only afterwards I was told that Block A, they'd been told to keep Block A empty for security reasons or whatever. And then the other empty seats in the stand were just because, the way so many go down to sort of the singing section, as I call it, down in the corner, and they're standing on the steps and stuff. If all of those people who were standing on the steps took a seat, the stand actually would have been full. So, I don't think there's a huge amount that they can do about that, really. But a good win for both.
Great win for both.
Yeah.
Kind of
under pressure as well with the European thing.
Yeah, there's a couple of things about this, because this was Shamrock Rovers' chance to nail their arch rivals' European hopes. And I'm sure Stephen Bradley was talking before the game about doing that. And look, both were the better team on the night and deserved their victory. And I don't know about that guard of honour. Just after thinking of it there, Con, that guard of honour by their own players. I don't know.
I'm not a fan of guards of honor at all. I remember somebody giving out a number of years ago when Shamrock Rovers didn't give Sligo Rovers a guard of honor at some match somewhere. Maybe it was up in Sligo. And I remember thinking, it kind of reminds me of rugby players clapping each other off the pitch. And I just think it's a nonsense, and likewise, I think they were having it was a dig, but it just I think it backfired though. You think so? I don't think it affected the result one way or the other, to be honest.
No, it didn't. But just in terms of cringiness, maybe, I don't know. That's the way I don't know. That's the way I looked at it. Anyway. I was like, oh God. That's what when I saw it. That's what I was like, oh. But anyway, look, it didn't have an impact on the result at all.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering now, Conan, and correct me here if you think I'm wrong, but do you think that Keith Long has taken Bohemians as far as he can possibly take them in terms of the league? Because if you have a look at it, you have Shamrock Rovers that are probably going to dominate over the next number of years. Bows still offering the same one-year contracts over and over again. Other clubs are starting to put more emphasis on longer-term contracts. I don't know.
It must be frustrating for him because, they've this stream of good young players coming through, and every season, they lose one or two of the best of them. And there's a good chance again this close season. I mean, already Ross Tierney is off to play in Scotland. Who's to say there aren't one or two other players in that Bows squad that are going to move on for, longer contracts or better wages somewhere else. Yeah. And it must be really frustrating. And I mean, they're going to look at Derry next season. I think Derry are going to be, I've already kind of jokingly said that they're going to be champions next season. Obviously Shamrock Rovers are going to be pretty strong next season. Sligo Rovers will probably build on what they have this season. Now they've European football to look forward to, a bit of dosh coming in there. So if you're the manager, they do a really good job. There's no doubt about it. I mean, but at some point there probably is a sort of a professional pride. Is that the right word? You want to win something, now they might win the FAI Cup, by the way.
Look, as I said, it's just about league here, and I think the cup and the European run have been absolutely sensational. And if they win a cup, it's fantastic for the club and what it might do for them in the local community. But I'm just talking about as a manager, you've lost Andre Wright, Chris Twardek, Danny Grant. You're going to be losing. You lost Danny Mandroyo as well. Yeah. You're going to be losing Georgie Kelly. You're going to be losing Ross Tierney, and that's just off the top of my head. And that's not knowing anything. That's what's going on at the club at the moment. Like as a manager, you can't plan.
Yeah.
You can't plan for anything, like, and that must be very frustrating too. So you're asking me earlier on, does Dundalk have would Dundalk be open to other managers? Absolutely. Would they be looking at Keith Long? Probably. Would they be looking at Tim Clancy? Probably. Would they be looking at Vinnie Perth? Probably. Do you know what I mean? There's loads of different options for managers now in the League of Ireland, which is very strange.
He just seems to. They love him there, obviously, and he loves them. But I hadn't really thought about if, for example, he was offered the Dundalk job, and I'm not saying that he is going to be, but if he was, he'd have to. It would give him pause for thought. Mind you, there'd be a huge rebuilding job to be done there as well. It's not like he'd be walking into.
That's why he might be. That's why they might interest the Dundalk board, because of the rebuild that he has to do at Bows nearly every single year. Yeah. But look, this is all hearsay. I'm just saying, from if I was Keith Long, how frustrated I would be with when I see all the other clubs around me building every single year, whereas I have to rebuild. I'm adding to other teams are adding to their squad, and yet I'm bringing players through, and they're just getting. Yep, I'll take you and I'll take you, and now I have to rebuild again. So I can see a frustration building there, possibly with Keelan. I don't know. He might love the rebuild. He might be saying, "Look, it's a bit of a challenge, and I love it." But I don't know.
Ultimately, you're in there to win leagues, though, and cups. And I've said all along, I really do fancy them to win the cup this season. By the way, congratulations to Danny Mandroyo. 15 league goals from open play this season. Top scorer in the league from open play. But listen, that is an amazing return for a midfield player. You got to give credit. I mean, he's really settled in there.
He has, of course he has. We talked about him over the last number of weeks. I didn't see him having the impact that he would have had, being honest, especially after his first game. I don't remember who that was against. I don't think it was the President's Cup game against Dundalk. I don't think I'm talking about that game, but it was his first league game. I think it was on the telly. I can't remember who it was against. I think it was really, really poor. And obviously it's going to take time to adjust and to settle into a Shamrock Rovers team. Obviously having the feeling that you are taking over the mantle of Jack Byrne, Aaron McAniff as well. So yeah, he's done really, really well. 15 goals, as you say, is a really, really impressive return. But with Jack possibly coming back to Shamrock Rovers, like, there's a lot of players there: Graham Burke, Danny Mandroyo, Richie Towell, Jack Byrne. These are all players that play in that number 10. That's their favorite position, is the number 10, those four players. So you can't play four number 10s. So it's going to be interesting how Stephen Bradley accommodates each of them, because they probably will all play. Well, three of them probably will. And that's going to be an interesting scenario for Stephen Bradley.
Yeah, I mean, if Jack comes back, I mean, I know it was reported in the Examiner this week. I'm until ink is dry on a contract, I still remain to be convinced. But I think it'd be great for the league to have Jack Byrne back playing in it again, no matter who he's playing.
100%, absolutely. And we've all, and then what's this we go, I'm talking about Bowes again here, voting for a bid for Jack Byrne. Jack Byrne would be the highest paid player in the League of Ireland if he does come back. And we're hearing that Bowes don't pay their players. Their budget isn't great. You go way out of that, will you? If they're looking to bring in Jack Byrne, their budget isn't. Their budget is more than what people think it is. Put it that way. But yeah, it's great to see him come back, because we all saw the impact that he had. He got into international squads, played international games, and that raised the profile of the league as well. And plus, he's a wonderful player. There's no doubt about it. And he does the business on the pitch. Yeah. He
played some of his best football in the league here, I think. St. Pat's 2, Finn Harps 2, Sean Boyd with 2 goals in that one. Billy King and Dara Burns, lovely goal for Pats. And then Waterford drawing at Longford. So suddenly it is advantage Harps with that one game to go. I mean, next weekend, those matches, Waterford against Pats and Harps against Longford, they'll be nail biters for both of those teams.
the thing is, Con, with the Waterford game, is that St. Pat's need to win. I think if they don't win next week, they don't win the final. That's just my opinion.
They'd be going into it off the back of 3 defeats in a row, would it be? Yeah.
Well, they didn't. They only drew with Finn Harps, but they wouldn't have won a game in 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
And it's all about momentum. And I know people say, "Oh, one-off games and all," but like look at Bows, for instance. They're off the back of a brilliant Dublin Derby win. If they nail that 4th place next week, if they better Derry's result, which I think they will, because I think they'll go down to Sligo and pick up a result. Derry going to Dundalk, you don't know how that will go at all. Yeah, especially with the way the Dundalk players heading to Derry and what way it will impact in the dressing room. Michael Duffy and Patrick McElhenney, come on lads, just give us a little dig out here. We want to play Europe next year. You don't know what way it will play out, but
geez, I hadn't thought of that. That's an interesting angle, actually. Yeah, so many of those players are going to be playing for Derry next season. Yeah.
And obviously they're not going to drop the game. I'm not saying that they're
no, but just somewhere psychologically.
It's all about absolutely, and that's only a natural feeling because of course you want to play in Europe next season, and so what I was saying about the Pats thing is that they need to win, and if they don't win, they're going into a cup final on the back of 4 or 5 poor results, and so it's just. I don't know.
Waterford will be without Greg Halford, who was sent off. I have to say, looking at it, the second yellow card, I mean, one of the Longford players was down, killing a bit of time 5 minutes before the end. Halford just went over to kind of help him up, tell him to get on. No aggression at all. And a couple of Longford players came in and started pushing him, and the referee brought him to the side, gave him a second yellow card and sent him off. And I thought that was so harsh. I mean, he's going to miss the game next week now. I noticed Mark Bircham didn't do an interview after the game with Waterford's Twitter or Waterford's media team. It wasn't on Twitter, which normally it would be after every game. And Mark, he's always happy to talk to any camera, I think. But I think maybe he was sensible not to do an interview down there because he could have said something that he might have regretted afterwards.
Yeah, and I noticed that Greg Halford didn't tweet about the incident afterwards himself when he has done similar in the past about decisions. So yeah, it's you see that's the thing. Like he's such an experienced player, and
I don't think he did anything wrong, Conan. I swear to God, I'm not saying he had a yellow card, so he had to be a bit careful. But he literally went over to pick the guy up. There was no sense of aggression in what he did.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he deserved a second yellow or anything, but it's just in those situations you just stay clear of them. You don't know what he said.
You've been a player something. Though, Conan. You've just conceded a soft enough penalty down the other end a few minutes before that. You're battling to get a win to stay in the division, and a guy is on the ground kind of taking the mickey a bit. It's very hard to. Well,
I've never been on a yellow card though. But Wordsworth's goal.
Yeah.
Great goal.
What a
fantastic finish.
Yeah.
But no, I do think Harps will have enough. I think I think Waterford will be in the relegation playoff, and I do think they'll be fine. That's
speaking of the relegation playoff, the game on Friday between Bray and UCD is at Dalymount, the first division playoff final. It's one of those ones. I presume they have to get the season finished, but I wish they hadn't put that up against all the other games that are happening. I'd love to go to that match, but I can't now.
Yeah, I know, but it's going to be a great game. Bray v UCD.
How do you call it?
Oh God, I don't know, Con. I just think with UCD's firepower, like Cardigan and Whelan, again, they're very, very. They're going to be two of the most sought after players in Ireland. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about Colin Whelan and the goals that he scored, but I actually think that Cardigan is the more attractive player to get, considering his adaptability and where he can play and his creativeness and how he can fit into a lot of people's teams. Colin Whelan, on the other hand, is an absolute goal scorer. And if you look at the top teams, like Bows, if they lose Georgie Kelly, Colin Whelan would probably fit the bill in there. But apart from that, you're looking at Shamrock Rovers, who have all those players that we talked about already. I do think they still need a striker. Derry are impressing already, and they already have Georgie Kelly probably going back up to the Ryan McBride Stadium. So yeah, I think Kerrigan is more of an attractive one for suitors. So yeah, it'll just be interesting to see what happens there. And but yeah, who's going to win? Oh God, you put me on the spot now. UCD.
Yeah, I think I was just slightly leaning towards them as well. Just the goals that they,
That's it. Just the goals, and like Bray have the experience. Bray have all the experience. Aaron Barry, Connor Clifford, Dylan Barnett, some really, really good players and players with good experience. But yeah, it's just the firepower, I think. And Brian Mark, by the way, what a save! Did you see?
I thought you were going to talk about his bit of skill where he kind of did a almost
Shane
like a
Duffy.
Cruyff turn. It'll be called a Shane Duffy from now on. To send the Italian player off for his lunch. It was great. I didn't see the save. No.
Oh my God, the save, Con. The ball was played through to the Italian centre forward, and he took it early on his left foot, but Brian read it and brilliant save. And when he saved it, there was a camera angle that caught the Italian goalkeeper, giving him a big clap.
Wow.
It was an incredible save.
That's great. I'm delighted for him.
Yeah. So he's another player that's going to will 100% not be a Bray Wanderers next season.
Right. Well, will there be a Bray Wanderers next season? That's the question. There were reports of this merger with Cabinteely, which again, I mean, there's nothing concrete on it at the moment, but it's an interesting proposition, and it looks as if Cabinteely want to get out of Stradbrook.
That was the initial conversation, Con, between Cabinteely and Bray, was a ground share.
Yeah.
Cabinteely went to Bray looking for a ground share, and then all of a sudden Bray were like, well,
come on in, let's join the party.
Take us over.
I mean, if I was a Bray fan, I'd be pretty worried hearing about that, and especially if Bray got promoted. That could throw a spanner in the works, but we'll monitor that situation.
We'll touch on that maybe in a couple of weeks.
So we were talking about Waterford there, and our guest this week is a proud Waterford man who went on to win 15 caps for Ireland, played at the highest level with Liverpool, and probably for a lot of people will be almost better known at this stage for his commentary work on the Premier League in England and stuff. So we hear from the man himself, Jim Beglin. Jim, great to see you, and thanks a million for joining us on LOI Arena this evening. Obviously, we're speaking to you now prior to Ireland's match coming up against Luxembourg, but it's been an interesting interesting couple of years, really, for the Republic of Ireland, Stephen Kenny and his management team.
Well, it has. It's been, I suppose, a bit of a slog in Stephen Kenny's world, because there was an awful lot of doubt not so long ago, and thankfully he's beginning to turn that doubt into a little more security, because I think the players are getting it now, and they seem to understand what he wants, the collective and how it should function. And I think individually, I think they're all much kind of more aware of their own jobs. So it's just a shame that hadn't kicked in a little earlier, so we could have started the group in stronger fashion. And, you know, with tonight, particularly away to Luxembourg, I think on the back of the win in Azerbaijan, I'd be expecting something more purposeful and convincing again tonight. You know, and it's such a shame that we dropped points to both Luxembourg and Azerbaijan. But for that, we might have been in a slightly, better position. But I think it looks like we could become more competitive, and that's the big step we needed to take.
It just strikes me as strange, you know, when Liam Brady gave Stephen and the Irish set up a pretty tough kicking the other night after the match against Portugal, I felt. And I reflected back to the time when he was playing in the Irish team, when you were playing in the Irish team, you were playing in a European Cup winning, Liverpool team, and Ronnie Whelan was there, Mark Lawrence, and, Brady was playing at the top of the game in Italy, and Frank Stapleton, players like that. To compare the place where the Irish players in the international squad were in the 80s versus now, it's chalk and cheese, really.
Well, it is. I mean, I've said that both, from watching what Liverpool have now to what Liverpool had when I played. I think it's actually very similar. I think that the styles of play, we kind of played off the cuff, but nowadays everything is I think more micromanaged, if I can put it like that, because yes, of course you have a way of playing, the identity, the blueprint that everything operates from. But if you watch the likes of, Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel, Pep Guardiola, and even when Manchester United were losing 5 to Liverpool, Klopp was still berating players for not doing the job they should be doing and for being in what position when. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about, we didn't have that programming. We had something much more kind of off the cuff. Yes, we did it to a certain degree, but we didn't do it kind of to that length.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of the same, with Ireland now. I think Stephen Kenny has a kind of a template that demands X, Y, and Z. We never really kind of went about our game anything like that. Yes, we had a kind of a way of playing, but usually the big players, the Liam Brady's, would stand out. If you analysed how Ireland play, everything went through him. He was the magnet in midfield. So you kind of take Liam Brady out of the game and you're kind of reducing an awful lot of, Ireland's threat. So, but I like what Stephen Kenny is getting now from his players. He's getting more out of them. We've got a good keeper in Bazunu. I think we've got in Robinson now somebody who might just be able to kind of keep going, stand up, start, filling that void that Robbie Keane left. And I like the likes of Cullen in midfield. Of course, you got the more experience in Duffy, who's done well, and Coleman. And I like the way he's kind of slotted in as the third centre back, which frees Doherty up. So I think that there's an awful lot that's kind of fitting in place again. But I mean, I don't know how strong Liam Brady went. The only thing is I'm not going to start making predictions that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. There's still an awful lot of work to be done for us to kind of get back on that competitive shelf.
Would you be like everybody else, I suppose, Jim, where what side of the fence you'd be on, just in terms of whether or not to give Stephen Kenny another contract or not? Liam Brady was suggesting that we should wait until maybe the summer and perhaps offer him a new deal then, depending on the results. Or have you seen enough for him to be given more time?
The latter. I think he should be given more time. Just my opinion, but I do, because he's putting something in place now. He's making progress. He's very unlucky that night in Portugal with Ronaldo and what he did at the end. But just watching Ireland play Portugal at the Aviva, I thought there was kind of a confidence kind of in the air again. That they seemed to kind of fancy themselves, and they were well in that game. Could have pinched it. I know Ronaldo could have done likewise at the other end. But I honestly think he's done enough at this stage to warrant to more backing. I think he should be given the chance to develop it further and try and elaborate in terms of the European qualifiers that are going to be up next. And obviously, that unfortunately the World Cup is out of our hands now, qualifying for that. But I'm with him. I like to see football. I thought Mick McCarthy mixed things up on the back of Martin O'Neill. I thought that was turgid in the end, and Trapattoni before that. I worked on many of those games, and I kind of bit my lip on a lot of them because it was just horrible to watch. We were just sat there defensive and doing nothing, and no wonder we were struggling to score goals. But I think there's kind of, watching Stephen Kenny at times, as you do with a lot of the English Premier League sides that play like that, taking risks at times, playing out from the back and all of that. But I like it. I love to see kind of good football played. I like to see the ball passed and moved and everybody kind of, doing their thing in different positions. It's not quite total football like the Dutch were able to produce for years and years, but it's encouraging and it's more enjoyable. And the vibe I'm getting, certainly from watching it on the TV here at home, is that, the people are getting behind Stephen Kenny now. I think there's much more support, in his favour.
During your era, Jim, there was obviously, Con touched on it, there was so many players that played for Ireland that played at the top level. But here we have like Ogbeni playing in League One, Bazunu, who you mentioned already, he's playing his trade in League One at the moment, obviously on loan from Manchester City. There's been a lot of talk about young players being brought through. I'm not necessarily agreeing with that, because the players that they're 24, 25, I wouldn't really consider those young. I would consider them inexperienced at international level. I wanted to ask you, how difficult is it to take that step up from club football and raise that to international standards?
Well, I think it can only be done properly if you've got, a certain amount of experience in the team as well. I remember when I stepped into the Irish team, I had considerable experience around me, and that was a big help for me. And I think it's the same for the young guys you mentioned that are coming through now. There are a few voices who need to be heard, and they need to do their bit, not just when you're kind of working out on things in training, but certainly on match day. And they need to be hard. You need to be frank. Certainly they were with me. If you're out of position, I played alongside Mick McCarthy. I tell you what, when he shouted at you, it was scary. But he didn't. For Mick, it was a case of he would just bellow at me. And I kind of know straight away, the alarm bells would go ringing. I was alert again, if he felt that I was kind of slacking in any way. And I always enjoyed that. I always got something out of that. So I think it's always the same over the years, no matter what team. I think if you're bringing youngsters through, you have to have that balance, I think, with a certain amount of nous from your senior boys. And if you can get that right, then, it's all part of the process, and it's another little part of what Stephen Kenny is trying to add.
I was just thinking, Jim, you've been sort of part of many of the great occasions for the Irish team in the 80s and 90s as a commentator, co-commentator alongside the likes of George Hamilton and Jimmy McGee and what have you, on various games. But you missed out as a player after that leg break in 87. You missed out Euro 88, USA 90. I think the men in white coats are coming from me outside. They're either outside your house or mine, Conan, one or the other. But from your point of view, when you reflect back on things, is it a matter of some serious regret that you obviously never got to play in those finals, albeit you were there as a commentator?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to go on about it to the extent I've put it all away. I've compartmentalized all of that. I've had to. Look, you get the fiddles out now. Get the violins out, because I'm the sob story. I was the one that got injured and never kind of took it on, as you referred to. But I really enjoyed my time sitting in the co-commentary seat and seeing some of the great occasions we managed over the years. But yeah, at the time, what can you do? There was no point in me kind of being bitter or getting really kind of down on myself, But it
would be very understandable if you did.
Well, I did that to a certain extent. I thought I managed all that well at the time, but looking back now that I'm more experienced in life, I didn't. I probably could have done with some help. But the culture you got to remember back then was get on with it.
Yeah.
Be a man, don't show any weakness. Don't be soft. That was basically the advice you'd get. Push on, So I did. I can look in the mirror now and be honest with myself. I gave it everything to try and get back into it. Same as when I got called into the Italia 90 squad, the super squad as it was initially. And I went up the front training, and I think I'll show them that I'm fit now. And I broke down. My knee went back to Leeds for another operation, and I knew the writing was on the wall. But I was very fortunate to be able to kind of to back it up by being there with a microphone. Unfortunately, I wasn't there to kick the ball around, but it's one of those things, and it happened. It's a fact, and there's not a lot I can do about it.
Did you ever have any ill feeling towards Gary Stevens after the leg break, Jim?
Well, there's a question I've been asked once or twice. If you want me to be truly honest, and I'm not trying to stir anything up again, I was done. There was a culture of that happening back at the time. I went in, I won the ball, and I ended up with my leg smashed. So Evertonians think that I'm crying about this year in, year out. I'm not. If I'm asked about it, I give honest answers. It's fact. It happened. I'm not making it up. You've asked me about it. I was done, and I tried to do everything in my power to get back to some level, and I did to a certain degree. Moving on to Leeds, and we won the second division as it was in 89-90. So I think I surprised a lot of people and even been able to do that. But I was playing in pain then, and I wasn't enjoying it because I had a subsequent injury on the other leg. I had a knee injury, and that began to really take a toll on me. And I knew then that my time was probably up.
I'm so young, what were you, 27, 28-ish? Yeah, 27, were you?
Mm-hmm.
Very young.
Yeah, 23 when I broke my leg at Goodison. And then I had 18 months of rehab after that and healing. And then I got back on the pitch for Liverpool reserves. And I was playing against Manchester United at Anfield in the reserves. And they were playing me in midfield to try and get me fit. And I remember just turning to hook one up. And as I did so, I just felt my whole right knee go. And I went down and it was stuck in a bent position. And unfortunately for me, I had a badly torn cartilage. And I think the next morning they took about 80% of that cartilage out. And then the rest is gone kind of bit by bit. But they can replace hearts, livers, kidneys, you name it. But a piece of grizzle in your knee. And that did for me in the end, So to be honest with you, as much as I love the game, I knew it had been kind of a pretty rapid decline for me in the end, and I knew I was probably going to have to quit. And when I went for a second opinion on my knee, I was told by the surgeon that you better stop playing now, or you're going to do yourself serious harm for the remainder of your life. You have to think about it for the remainder of your life. So I'm still able to go on a golf course, which is quite nice, but that's about it these days.
Actually, my last question on Gary Stevens is that he's very, very well known in League of Ireland circles when he was assistant manager at Sligo back in 2013, but he's actually does a lot of presenting work as well, Jim. I'm just wondering if your paths have crossed, that he's be able to have a little chat about it.
No, do you know, it was funny because I'm going back a good few years now, but it was kind of an anniversary of when we played Everton at Wembley in '86, and Kenny Dalglish, through Marina and her charity, they organised a game at Anfield back in the day against Everton. And everybody showed, even Kevin Sheedy, who couldn't play, everybody showed on the day who was involved at that time, who could be there. And he didn't show. And like I've been told, Gary Stevens, that is, I've been told over the years by so many people, and a lot of Irish people, a lot of Irish Liverpool fans, who've seen him on a night out while they've been in Liverpool, and they've kind of given him loads of stick. So I think he's had to put up with quite a bit over the years. Not that I wish that on him, I don't. But yeah, from time to time, I kind of, I'd hear these stories coming back from different people who'd seen him in a club or a bar. But in terms of my work, I haven't come across him. I believe he lives in Australia now. And Optus Sport take all our stuff. So I guess he probably can't get away from me.
You keeping as far away from you as he can at the moment, and if he's in Australia. I was just thinking, Jim, obviously this is a League of Ireland podcast ostensibly, and I remember when you signed for Shamrock Rovers, this raw talent which came up from non-league football in Waterford, and you were sitting in the stand in Milltown before you played your first game, and you looked like something out of Spandau Ballet. I don't know if you remember, in those days you had the old Tony Hadley coat and you looked the part and everything. But when you came up to Milltown and started playing for Shamrock Rovers, could you have imagined at that point how far your career was going to go?
No, but I went to Shamrock Rovers, Con, because I genuinely believed it would be my stepping stone to England. That was why I mean, Johnny Giles may have even mentioned that while we were kind of, in negotiations, as it were, if you can call them negotiations. I mean, it was an offer I was never going to turn down. It didn't go down brilliantly in my hometown in Waterford. Tommy Jackson, I believe, was the manager in place back then. And I think they concocted a couple of stories, because I'd escaped from their clutches and I was allowed to get into Dublin hands, Shamrock Rovers hands. They weren't happy with that, and Waterford and Rovers had a bit of a thing going then. I don't know whether they still do. There was a rivalry there, and I think they put something out that I tried to get too much money out of them, which was laughable, because I went to Rovers on 50 punts a week, and by the time I paid my digs money, it was like, there wasn't much left. So I knew that was my opportunity, and obviously, things didn't work out. It was a great setup, very professional setup under John Giles. He didn't pull any punches. And I learned an awful lot. I gained, great grounding during my time under John Giles at Shamrock Rovers, and with some very good players as well. Because, the idea was to try and get all the best talent around Ireland and, maybe able to win the league or compete in European competition. Yeah. It didn't quite work out that way, but I think in the very end, for me, I had been told that it was going part-time and I'd have to kind of get a job somewhere and maybe, just reconfigure everything. And I can remember Arsenal were in for me. And at that stage, I was on a commercial course with Aer Lingus, not to work with Aer Lingus, but maybe, in line to get a job elsewhere. Getting up at the crack of dawn, I remember getting across to North Dublin, because we were on site for everything we did with our class, and then within a week of that, Arsenal pulled out, didn't want me, and they wanted me to go to Liverpool for a month's loan, and I was absolutely thrilled with that, and I knew then that this was my chance. Richie Bailey, who was a wonderful, as you know, Con, a wonderful midfielder. Brilliant feet, really quick, skillful feet, Richie. He had gone there shortly before me, and it hadn't worked out for Richie. And I can just remember thinking, right, I am not coming back a failure. I'm not coming back to Dublin a failure, and I'm certainly not going to end up back in Waterford a failure. This is it now, and I have to kind of make it work. And thankfully, within 10 days of the loan stroke trial, Liverpool signed me up.
Bob Paisley was the manager back then. Yeah. An amazing
It's
character. I never met him, but he just
there's a guy you'll never heard of called David West, and I ended up rooming with Westy. He's a good lad, and he was from Weymouth, and he had signed just before me, in the week before me, and the BBC had the cameras in there because they were making a documentary for Sports Night, so he's sitting at home thinking he was Bob Paisley's last signing, and the whole family are around, and they're expecting him to kind of come walking out of the office, and it was me. Because I'd squeezed in last minute, and I came walking out and the cameras were on me, and they were all disgusted in me. I had to tell an offer too for his mum as well, So yeah, they squeezed me in right on the tax deadline, I believe.
You mentioned there, actually, you went to Shamrock Rovers as a stepping stone to England. Did you ever believe that it was going to be a club like Liverpool that you were going to go to? No, not in a million years. And funnily enough, I think we played in my hometown. We played
Waterford away, and we drew 1-1. And I was on the coach back to Dublin, and Louis Coyne pulled me to one side, and he said, Arsenal are out of it now. They've not pulled in. And you know, Terry Neal was the then manager, and I was at the Bobby Robson golf in Portugal a good few years ago now, and Terry was there. So I said to Terry, you know, did you know anything about my circumstances at the time? And he went, no, I wouldn't have anything to do with that. He said that would have been done with kind of the youth coach and the youth development officer and all that kind of thing. And I just said, okay, because I just wanted to tell you thanks, because I couldn't have ended up in a better club. You know, I'd never imagined that. I'd never really been kind of focused on it's going to be that club or that club. I just went out and I thought, let your football do the talking and the rest will fall into place. And that was always my attitude, you know. So thankfully, it fell into a very nice place.
You got into the first team under Joe Fagan, and then obviously Kenny Dalglish then kind of made you a significant member of the first team. And what was it like to play under Kenny?
Well, first of all, if you bounced one into his feet, you get some backlash. If you made it hard for him to control it, because he was Kenny, he was king. I mean, we all revered him, you know, we were all in awe. I certainly was. Because I remember when they started grooming me to kind of take me away as 13th man. There was only one sub then. And so they started sticking me on the coach going to away games, you know, and Kenny would pick on me, you know, and the banter, try and wind you up, all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to keep my head down and not, you know, just trying to ease my way through it somehow. And so like when I got in the pitch with Kenny, I mean, I played against him as well, because shortly before I went, Rovers, I think it might have been Centenary Con, we had Liverpool over and we drew 1-1 at Glenmalure Park. And I didn't think I played particularly well, and I thought Liverpool won't be that bothered then. But I'd heard a couple of times after that, read in the paper that, you know, Tom Saunders was cross-watching Shamrock Rovers, and they say he was watching me. But, you know, I had to put all that out of my head. But in the end, going there, Kenny was, you know, I mean, Kenny was like a huge part of the club. You know, best player I played with. I mean, Rushy was a phenomenal goal scorer. Hansen, what a centre-back. But Kenny certainly for me was tops. And he wasn't you know, he upheld standards, and you'd have to kind of match his standards. I referred to that before, you know, but he wasn't a coach as such. Kenny was more manager than coach. Good man manager. But Ronnie Moran was the coach, and Roy Evans, and they would drill everything into us kind of week in, week out about pass and move, you know. They never really regarded anything as having a kind of style of play or an identity. You just had to work your nuts off, and you just had to just pass it and move. And if you passed it and gave it away, they were on your case. If you passed it and didn't move, they were on your case. So that was the way it was. We were drilled into this program of, you know, the ball is everything. Do not lose the ball. Whatever you do not concede possession. And you kind of, you know, you had to get up to speed with that very quickly. And Kenny was a big part of that.
You know, he always, I think certainly in interviews around that time and subsequently, he always came across as a kind of a dour Scotsman. But I from what you're saying, I think there was much more to him than that face that we saw.
Yeah, totally. He was the biggest Mickey taker. I mean, he did come across as a bit dour and sour, but I think that was all born from an article that appeared in one of the tabloids or one of the Sunday papers or something about him and Marina, I think in very early stages, I think while he was still staying in the hotel before he moved into a house. So I think he was always very kind of wary of what the press might do, then the way they could kind of manipulate things to sound a certain way. So I think that all came from that. And he was quite defensive, you know, when you'd see him, he almost kind of took umbrage at certain questions that were asked. But underneath it all, he was completely different, you know, and he's still at it to this day. I mean, I'm in the same golf club as him, and you know, he's still on a wind up, bit grumpier now, has to be said, but he still loves a little wind up or just, you know, catching you out in some way.
Would you play with him? Like, I mean,
am I his best mate? No, I'm not. That's probably Hansen. who's in the club too. But no, I would every now and again play. The thing is, though, we have a little pros fiddle every Wednesday, and they like to go out really early, and I hate early tea times. I'm an afternoon man. I need to lie in the morning, you know. So I was playing with them fairly regularly at one stage, but I opted out.
Just thinking, drinks in the clubhouse bar at that club must be fantastic sometimes. So, you know, when you're having your little coffee after your round, and in walks Kenny Dalglish and Alan Hansen, then an hour later, 3 hours later, Jim Beglin walks in. Good stuff.
Yeah, but nobody knows me. I'm quite happy with that. They don't know me. Mike Newell is in there as well. Andy Much, John Coleman, who's manager of Accrington Stanley. Kevin Sheedy was in there, but he can't play now because of his knee. So we have a good, strong football link. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you have a Waterford link there, obviously, with Mike Newell and Kevin Sheedy. You know, it didn't work out for them at Waterford, and actually when Mark Bircham came in, things have picked up, albeit they're still in danger of a relegation playoff. Do you manage to keep in touch with what's going on here?
Yeah, I tried to, but it's nigh on impossible, Con. Simply because, I mean, I'd love to keep in touch with the Bundesliga, Serie A, but I've got, you know, so many games, and if you've got like a midweeker in, then the prep is everything for me, because I am, with what I do now, I think somebody once said to me that your career is your prep. It's a nice line, but it's not true, because every team has something different going on. Every match has a different set of circumstances around it. So you have to get in tune with all of that. So I've so many games kind of, you know, coming thick and fast. I have to keep up to speed. And I like to, having watched many very good commentators that I've worked with over the years, you know, and their copious note making, I realized that I could do it in an analytical way. And I kind of make my own little notes, my own pointers. And I think it helps kind of keep them in there when you write it down. And, you know, sometimes you never get a chance to look down. Sometimes a game kicks off and it's fantastic and it takes you away with it, and you don't get a chance. But now and again, if you've got something a bit, you know, slow and stolid, you can kind of look down and think, well, that's a point that can be made, you know, and I can maybe engage with the commentator and get something going. And, you know, and you kind of, you worm your way through it. You know, there's a discipline to it, and you pick up bits and bobs over the years.
There's some fantastic commentators around at the moment. I'm not going to mention one that we're involved with here, Jim, but I would like to ask you about Peter Drury, considering the amount of people that love him as a commentator. What's it like to work with him?
Peter's a good guy. He's super professional to start with, and his prep is incredible. Honestly, he just won't leave. If he misses anything, the slightest thing, then, you know, it'll ruin his week or his weekend. He wants to be kind of on top of every little thing. You know, he scripts these like incredible openings, and like I think all the Africans now refer to Peter as Shakespeare. They call him the bard, the poet. You know, and he does. He comes. I mean, I've had a chat with a couple of our producers, and he comes out with some. You know, I'm just kind of there going, wow. He's a wordsmith. He's obviously very intelligent. He knows when a moment can be crowned with a line, and he always just seems to kind of come up with the line in the moment. But it's like we started working together, I think, in the mid-90s with Radio 2, I think it might have been then, before it became Radio 5 Live with the BBC. And it's kind of gone from there. I followed him to ITV, and then I followed him to Premier League Productions, and I suppose to CBS. We're doing the Champions League for CBS now. So we see a lot of each other, and he's just bloody good, seriously good at what he does, you know, and I learn from him. And I think we've developed a rapport. You know, we've over the years, and as yet we've never had a bad word. It's probably going to happen next weekend. Now we got Liverpool Arsenal coming up, and maybe it'll kick off in that. But no, we've always been good friends. We've always tried to be really humble, and when nice things are said, mainly about him, not me, You know, it's kind of ignore it, feet on the ground. You can't kind of, you know, if you absorb praise, it's almost as if you'll go soft, you know, and he feels like that all the time. So he's very much a feet on the ground character and very down to earth and ordinary, but super good at what he does.
Is it very good to have a rapport with your commentator?
I think it is. I've tried always, and every commentator will have a different way of doing things, and he'll have a different pre-match routine as to whether you can maybe butt in and say something to him or just drop. Some of them just don't even want to be kind of, leave me alone. I'm kind of, they're kind of engaged in the process, and they're formulating thoughts, and, you know, how they're going to maybe enter things, and they're scribbling notes, and sometimes you just let them be. So you kind of, you get a feel for each one. But I think that if you have a commentator and a co-commentator engaged in some chit chat, you're like two fellas that are just kind of sitting there overseeing a game without necessarily overdoing it. You can overdo it at times, but I think if a certain amount is said, I like to listen to that. I like to listen to a commentator and a co-com who are kind of back and forth and are kind of on the same page. And I think, you know, that works well. There are times as well that you shut up. You know, sometimes the pictures speak for themselves. And if you've qualified a game in the first 5 minutes, if it's, say, attack v defence, say it's going to be Man City playing one of the Norwich or something, you know, at the Etihad, well, you know what's coming. And the game is going to be played basically in Man City's final third and the Norwich defence all around their box. And that's basically, so you have to then find different ways of saying the same thing. That's all part of the job. Or you have to kind of, something that you might have said 10 minutes ago, you now come at it from a different angle. You find, you know, just a different angle, and you just kind of, because if you keep on saying the same thing, then at home they're just shouting at the telly, will you shut up, Beglin? You know, so I've learned over the years, you know, I've made mistakes, made lots of mistakes, probably still make a few, but you know, you learn to kind of get a feel for what you have to kind of manage with each commentator you work with, and then, you know, hopefully it's being appreciated.
Yeah, I always remember you had a great relationship with Gabriel Egan when you were doing the radio commentaries on RTE all those years ago as well, and that you know, combo, it just worked so well. And you were saying before we came on air that you have is it 22 commentaries in 30 days over the course of the end of November, start of December? I mean, yeah. It's full on, James.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Well, December is always busy because they always try to squeeze a kind of midweek game or two, or midweek set of fixtures or two in that time. And of course, you got the festive period, and the games are spread over each day of a week. So that kind of, yeah, that's. I'm preparing myself for that. I'm having a little rest at the moment, and I'm kind of looking ahead to that. Yeah, I think I have Liverpool, Arsenal, then Manchester City, Everton. Then I have another game, I think, to finish off November. It might be Leeds, Crystal Palace, and then December is like it's really full on. I mean, it's a bit mental. I might not be exact with 22 and 30. But it's thereabouts, yeah. That takes us right into the new year. And I think 2nd of January, we got Chelsea, Liverpool at Stamford Bridge, which will be an absolutely smashing game.
It's a great complaint to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I could think of worse jobs.
Yeah.
I can assure you, I said it to you before we went on, I'm honestly not moaning about it. I relish it. It's brilliant. I love being busy and to be involved in something like this. And I have to say that, you know, for me, Premier League productions and the people that are involved there, for me, the best job I've had, and really enjoying that. I'm still getting away with it.
I'm telling the lads in RTE you said that, by the way. Can I take you back to Rovers again just for a second? Because you scored a goal in Europe for Rovers against Fram Reykjavik, 4-0 win at Milltown. And I can't remember it. I was at the match. I can't remember the goal. I remember Gail Carroll scored a brilliant goal that night. Do you remember that goal yourself?
I get torn now that you've brought that up. See, I remember scoring a complete fluke against Limerick where I was crossing it to Liam Buckley and I got it all wrong. And it just floated and floated. And next minute it ended up in the top corner and there was nothing the keeper could do. I think I might have done something similar against Fram Reykjavik. Yeah. I've got that in my head that I might have got a cross wrong and it just ended up like, going all the way into the far corner. Yeah. Something like that. I think I got lucky again.
Yeah. I think and now that you mentioned that, I have a vague recollection of that, but it's a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, we were still recovering from the away leg.
But that was a real rare one for an Irish team to win home and away in Europe. It's rare even now, but I mean back then it was very rare.
Well, I think wasn't it 7-0 on aggregate? I think it was a 3-0 in Reykjavik, and then we won 4-0.
4-0 here, at
Milltown, and I don't know. I think that still might be an Irish record.
Yeah.
To win that big in European competition. Of course, after that, we were hoping we were going to draw Tottenham in the next round. We got Universitate Craiova of Romania.
Yeah.
And that was an experience. They were very good. They were good. They were a level above us.
Yeah. There's some very grainy footage actually of the away leg in black and white, I think it is, on YouTube if you Google it. Or if it's on YouTube, you don't have to Google it. But it's Ronnie Murphy and all the lads in black and white. So it really was.
Thanks for that, Con. Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling like I'm fighting the grey, and then you're bringing in black and white footage.
Now, you're looking well, Jim. Actually, everything is good. Obviously, it sounds like life is good. Golf, nice. Plenty of matches to cover, and everything seems to be tickety-boo.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm very fortunate, and we were kind of lucky. I mean, you obviously at times like the pandemic, you think of your family first, and you don't want anybody coming down with it. And thankfully, we've all seemed to somehow avoid that. So that's been great, and I've been lucky as well in that. Okay, we had from March until June, we had a lockdown, but then Project Restart kicked in, and the Premier League protocols were very strong. And you had to adhere to them all. But it was lovely to be able to get back working. I think I did Man City Arsenal in my first game returning at the Etihad, and it was brilliant to get back. A bit eerie and a bit weird, but yeah, really lucky that I've been able to kind of work all the way through it, and thankfully, my health has been intact, so I've absolutely nothing to complain about. Yeah. I do have a bit of a creaky knee at times, but we'll ignore that.
Just my final question to you, Jim, is just in terms of this will be released now after the Luxembourg game. So what's your score prediction for tonight's match?
I'm going to go Luxembourg 0, Ireland 2. I know it was 3 in Baku, and Robinson could have had 5 that night. But I think there'll be the same determination we saw the lads go out in Baku. Now that they're kind of on the up, there's an upward curve now. There's a bit of a wave that they're starting to ride, and I'd be very disappointed if we come back with anything less than 3 points now from Luxembourg.
Con is usually good at these predictions. So Con, what are you going for?
Same. Funnily enough, that's what I had in mind. I'm rarely confident about an Irish team going out to play anybody. But I think they're going into this game on a bit of a high after that performance against Portugal, and I'd be optimistic. Yeah, I would. Fingers crossed. What about you?
2-1 Ireland.
Oh, we're all on the same page.
Pretty much the same page, yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. They're a little bit better. I mean, when they came to Dublin, they looked more organised, and they seem to have kind of gone up a level themselves. But I still think if Ireland are at what we've seen more recently, then I'd be quite confident.
Yeah. And the one thing about their win in Dublin was it was during the height of the COVID restrictions. An empty Aviva Stadium is a pretty hollow place to play a football match, and I think when the crowd was in for Portugal, you could see the difference that made. There will be an Irish crowd in Luxembourg as well. It's going to be a sellout by all accounts, so there'll be a good atmosphere, and I'm really looking forward to it. Jim, there's a million things we could have spoken to you about, but you've been very kind with your time this evening. Maybe somewhere down the road we'll have another chat with you about some of the stuff we didn't talk about tonight. But continued good luck with the broadcasting. You're doing great. The boy from Waterford done well.
Yeah, well, I'm in a nice place.
Yeah.
We put it like that, and I have no cause for complaints whatsoever. And it'd be great to have another chat. I'm full of waffle.
Yeah, well, you are that all right. I want to hear the story about Roy Willoughby in the car at USA 1990, but we'll tease people with that one. We'll talk to you about that the next time. Conan retired, by the way, this year. Was it this year, Conan?
Yeah, it was this year.
Yeah. Time. Yeah, so you're a good example to him of. He did his first match for RTE recently on the panel, and you're a good example to him of the fact that pastures new open up.
Brilliant, Conan. I wish you the very best.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah.
Just make sure you get your prep done, and whatever way it comes out after that, it comes out. And all the very best to you.
Thanks very much. There was a couple of snooker balls that came out of my mouth the first time, so
we've all done that. We've all don't worry about that. Just brush it to one side and get on with it again.
Yeah. Well, listen,
thanks a million, Jim.
Jim, thanks a million, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot.
All the best, Con. Thanks, Conan.
Well, we weren't too far off with our predictions, Conan. Jim and myself said 2-0. You said 2-1. So we win that competition, albeit.
Hold on. I had 3 goals. 2-1.
Yeah.
2-1. 2-1 surely wins that.
We call it a score draw in that case. But that confidence that we all had before the game was borne out by the performance. And one last thing before we leave that Luxembourg game, I tweeted about the stadium. I loved that stadium. I just thought, can you imagine if St. Pat's or Dundalk or Drogheda or anybody in the league was playing in a lovely 9.5, 10,000 seater stadium like that? Somebody else tweeted that it cost 80 million. So that's pretty pricey, but lovely stadium to play in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the type of stadium that you'd love to have maybe 3 or 4 of them dotted around Ireland, wouldn't it? But look, maybe in 10, 20 years, there might be some of those, but at Drogheda and Finn Harps and places like that, but yeah.
Like a stadium like that, a ground share between Drogheda and Dundalk, for example, call it the Louth Stadium or something. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, do you remember Connor when he started to broach that with not just his own crew, but the Dundalk faithful as well? It didn't really go down too well.
It's called a hard sell. Yeah. But listen, before we go, the Women's National League, what an amazing finish to the league this weekend. The TG cameras go to Greenogue to see the crowning of Peamount as champions as they play host to Galway. They did stick one camera over at the Shells match against Wexford Youths just to capture Shells' last match of the season, potential runners-up.
Which was a brilliant move, by the way. Imagine if they didn't.
Yeah, oh my God, absolutely. Yeah. And they've been getting great kudos for their coverage, actually. Peamount 2-0 up after 20 minutes. And they're already getting the Brasso out for the trophy, and it's all looking hunky-dory. And Galway just go on a blitz in the second half and score 5 goals. Meantime, Shells beat Wexford Youths 3-2, and Shells win the league by a point. I mean, Roy the Rovers stuff.
It's incredible. And I did mention earlier on that Jonathan Hill was at Talca Park. He actually wasn't.
He was at Greenogue first.
He was at Greenogue, yeah. Because he did an interview on TG Carr after the game. God, it was extraordinary. It was like Man City in 2011 when they won the league. That's kind of the feeling that I got from it. Can you imagine, as a Shelbourne supporter, as a player, when you know that Peamount are home to Galway, who like Galway finished on 29 points, so 30 points nearly behind Peamount, and they've gone 2-0 up inside the first 20 minutes. You're expecting that's it, game over. And Galway to get back into the game. And then Shells do the impossible, and win the actual league itself is incredible, because Galway, you'd never, ever think that they're going to come back from 2-0 down to win the game 5-2. And then Shells to go 3-0 up, nearly throw it away themselves. But brilliant. What the scenes. It's delighted for so many players in that Shelbourne dressing room, like Saoirse Noonan wanting to leave in Cork to try and gain strides in international football, which she did, and she's got a league title now. Pearl Slattery, Miss Shells, she is. And I put up a tweet about Ciara Grant yesterday, and Ciara Grant was obviously a guest on our show. Like a superhero with the work that she has done during COVID times, heading back to her own local hospital
for anybody who
she's a doctor. She's a doctor, and she went back to Letterkenny to help out, working with the Irish international teams as underage teams as a doctor, coaching with the Shells under 17s with Damien Duff and Luke Byrne. Like, is there anything that she doesn't do? She must have no time at all. And then to cap that off, a league winning medal, a cup final to look forward to as well. And my predictions all came off, Con. I predicted Shamrock Rovers, Shelbourne.
Oh, you should have gone to the bookies, Conan. Maybe you did.
Yeah, well, I didn't know. I did. Unfortunately, I didn't. I mean, what a way to win a league.
That's a great shout. Yeah, I mean, Peamount just must be like, again, as a former player, you must know how sickening that must be. I mean, by the way, the 5th goal for Galway, Abby Callaghan's goal, Dennis Bergkamp again. You know, just brilliant, her finish. So an amazing, but like when you're 2-0 up and you think you're going to be presented with the trophy in an hour's time or an hour and a half, like to let it slip away like that is a horrible way to lose a league.
Yeah, and then to have nothing, like usually Peamount do, like have a cup final to look forward to as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine what they're going through, and it always reminds me of Killian Brennan. He has got so many league titles. But I think there's 3 league titles that he lost on the last day of the season. And he talks about them more so than the winning ones. So just always puts into perspective. I'd say those girls that are on that Peamount team have to be dragged up off the ground because, as I said, it was there for the taking. They're 30 points clear of the team that they're playing. They go 2-0 up at home. They throw it away. And that's what they did, Con. They threw it away.
Yeah.
It's not as if they had a red card or player went off injured or anything like that. They threw it away, and it's just so sickening for them.
Credit to Galway though, and they've some good young players coming through the underage Galway teams, and obviously with Ruth Fahey there now as well. It's it'd be great to see, you know, another strong team emerge in the Women's National League.
Yeah, because Galway won the League Cup, the Women's Under 19s League Cup today. They bet DLR Waves in the final, and so they have a lot of talent coming through. I think they're in a false position, if I'm being totally honest. I'm saying they're 30 points clear of Peamount, but they've got some wonderful players. Julianne Russell has come home from Australia. Wonderful player. Scored yesterday as well. So yeah, Galway and again with Ruth Fahey going in there as well, it's going to be very interesting times for Galway women's football. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, look, there is the Women's Cup final to come. Obviously, the last round of matches in the Premier League, the playoffs to come in the First Division, and then the First Division, Premier Division, relegation, promotion playoff, and of course the FAI Cup final to come as well between St. Pat's and Bow. So still a big couple of weeks ahead of us as the season draws to a close. Thanks a million to Jim Beglin, who was a great guest earlier on. Really enjoyed that chat with him. I think I know.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah,
definitely. Really did. I'm a big Liverpool fan, you see, Con. So, like, I remember when I was 8, 9, and 10, I'd be reading books about the history of Liverpool. So when Ronnie Whelan came on, and obviously Jim Beglin today, like they're players that I'd really looked up to because they were Irish, like, you know, and they played for like Liverpool. And I know you talked about earlier on about your Shamrock Rovers jersey, but I was a big Liverpool fan as a child.
Most kids, that's the reality of the situation. Most kids were.
So to be able to speak to them now, I'm like kind of trying to lift my jaw up off the ground a few times, you know. But it's great to speak to these people.
Really enjoyed it. Well, look, thanks a million to everybody who listened to the podcast again today. Thanks a million to Pundit Arena, who put together the LOI Arena podcast. We're going to be back again next week. We'll be probably out a little bit earlier next week than we were delayed this week because of the late finish with the international game. But thanks for persevering with us, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye for now.